Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. We're going to talk about Strixhaven, and we're going to talk about where Strixhaven will be when it comes to every other Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition setting, where it belongs, and actually why it really should be in every Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition campaign with virtually no... in every canon Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition game that has resonance. All right, so let's talk about this. So I have been really shocked at the commentary response to Strixhaven. And the reason why is pretty much I'm seeing the same thing across the board. So I've seen this in 3 places so far. Davy Chappy, Dungeon Dudes, Fry Minis. And I've seen it in a few other places, but those are the ones that are the biggest and the most recognizable. And these are all sites that have taken the time to do a Strixhaven review, or, like in the case of Fry Mini, like a complete breakdown of virtually everything in the setting, right? And they're all saying the same thing. They're saying, hey, I love this book for a magical school campaign, but this should never show up in your Faerun game. This should never show up in your Ravnica game, in your Eberron game, in your Exandria game, in your Theros game, in any of your 5th edition settings, right? So right now, Faerun, Ravnica, Theros, Exandria, those are your core, those are pretty much it as far as your core Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition settings, right? And so basically, they're all saying the same thing. They're like, hey, this is a great book if you want to, play a Harry Potter-like magical school campaign, but wait, be careful. The backgrounds in this are ridiculously powerful, and this can't show up in your Faerun game because it's going to be out of balance, right? So I think generally, they all say it a little differently, but I think that's the summary of where they're all landing, right? And I think this is fundamentally wrong, And here's why. In order for you to say Strixhaven isn't in my game, you have to declare. When you say that, you're declaring that you are a starter level evolution dungeon master. Okay, so let's talk about Pokemon for 1 minute, right? So Squirtle, Wartortle, Blastoise. Squirtle is a starter level Pokemon. It's a starter level. It's the first evolution level Pokemon. Wartortle is the second evolution level Pokemon, and it's the middle evolution Pokemon. And Blastoise is a fully evolved, master Pokemon. Right, it's the top tier. So you have the middle tier, the top tier, and you have the bottom tier, right? So when you say, hey, I'm not going to bring Strixhaven into this game, you're saying I'm a starter level dungeon master, right? No middle tier, no top tier, no fully evolved or middle evolved dungeon master is ever going to say Strixhaven is not in my game. And here's why, okay? In order to say Strixhaven is not in Ravnica, Theros, Exandria, Faerun, right? In order to say it's not in any canon 5th edition campaign, you have to say, I haven't really read all of the player handbook. I don't really know what the spell Gate is. Gate is a 9th level spell. It's in every single edition, every single setting that I just mentioned, right? So Ravnica, Exandria, Theros, and Faerun all have Gate, the spell, with thousands of wizards who can cast it. And not a single one of those worlds meets the exception that's listed in the Gate spell, which is there are gods that disallow connection from other realms. It's not there. It's not printed in any of the books, right? In fact, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition says multiverse, right? All of these are together, right? So basically, when you're listening to a dungeon master who's saying, I'm not going to allow Strixhaven into my campaign, or a commentator saying you should be very wary of putting Strixhaven into your game, what they're saying is, I'm a starter level dungeon master, right? They're not poor dungeon masters, not bad dungeon masters. Squirtle isn't a bad Pokemon. He's just a starter level Pokemon, right? And I get it. They're not wrong, right? Here's the thing. For 47 years in Dungeons & Dragons, we've had combat, and combat has had no end of mechanical complexity. And so for the first time with Strixhaven, they're saying, hey, there's mechanical complexity. There is hierarchy. Like, every single school has an initiate, apprentice, pledge mage, dragon, right? Like, huge amount of hierarchy, right? And what they can do and how they interact, right? That's a social interaction mechanic. We're talking, and so basically, while every other book in Dungeons and Dragons has been incredibly focused on mechanical benefits for combat for every player character, this is the first time Strixhaven is saying, okay, we're going to open up that massive level of complexity specifically for interaction, right? And so with Friendship and Beloved, you have bond boons and bond banes, right? And there are student dice, and like the level of interaction complexity is just beginning to really ramp up and start to go down the same road as combat, where it's truly mechanically complex, right? And this is terrifying for a lot of dungeon masters, and they're like, oh, I forgot, I'm not really a middle of evolution dungeon master. I'm not really a full evolution dungeon master who's capable and skilled and knows how to put safety and safety and fun and basically a compelling story in for everybody. I'm still at the low end. I can only deal with a level of high level complexity for combat. I can't mix in interaction too, right? And we shouldn't, there shouldn't be any mocking or any, you shouldn't think lesser of these dungeon masters or these commentators who are saying, I'm not ready for the level for there to be two levels of mechanical complexity, both interaction and combat, right? And for me, it's just, the only place where we can have complex mechanics is in combat. These people, they're Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition players and commentators. They're going to get there. The game's going to evolve them, right? And it's okay if maybe some of them have been, have been playing since 2014, and now it's 7 years later, and they're still starter level evolution dungeon masters. They're still the Squirtle dungeon master. They haven't reached the War Turtle level dungeon master or the Blastoise level dungeon master, right? And I will admit, I'm going to admit this. If you're going to run Strixhaven, right? It's got friends, it's got beloveds, it's got all these level of hierarchies. It changes the wizard class for every single setting, right? Because every single setting, because Gate exists, logically are going to have wizards who came from this school, right? In fact, I would say the majority of the wizards should probably come to this school for all of those settings because Gate exists, right? And so anybody who's telling you, oh, well, Strixhaven really shouldn't be in this campaign, they're just saying, I really haven't read all the spells in the player's handbook because I forgot Gate exists. And because the Gate exists, yes, Strixhaven is going to be in Faerun, Theros, Ravnica, and Exandria. And disallowing that option for any player is just, it's not a disallowed, it's totally allowed. Every dungeon master has the right to, the page 4 rule in the Dungeon Master Guide. The rules aren't in charge. We are, right? But just understand when anybody's saying, oh, hey, be careful. Don't let Strixhaven into, Faerun or Exandria or Theros or Ravnica or any of the 5th edition campaigns. They're saying, hey, be patient with me. I'm a starter level commentator and I'm a starter level dungeon master. And someday I'll evolve to a War Turtle level, to a middle evolution dungeon master phase. And someday I'll evolve to, a fully evolved dungeon master. But right now, I'm a Squirtle. I'm not a War Turtle or a Blastoise, right? And honestly, be patient with your dungeon masters, right? If any of your dungeon masters are saying, you can't have Strixhaven in here, what they're really saying is, hey, I can only handle complexity with combat. I can't handle complexity with interaction. And you should have much sympathy for these dungeon masters. And the reason why is combat mechanical complexity. What were the consequences, right? If you got it wrong, the goblin was cut in half too soon or too late, right? But when you're dealing with mechanical rules complexity with interaction, with human being interaction, entity, conscious entity interaction, the ramifications are massive. Like, you're like, oh, hey, wait, okay, so a longsword is D6 or a D8, but wait, the difference between Friendship and Beloved, what is Beloved? Is Beloved romance, or is it just wait, were Harry and Hermione and Ron all beloved because they would die for each other, not just friends? Wait a second, I have to look at my own soul. I have to look at my own heart. I have to look at my own mind. I have to look at what is the shape of friendship. When does what's the difference between somebody who you would die for and somebody who you want to be romantically involved with? Oh my gosh, I've got to actually learn about human beings, not just the damage on a longsword. This might actually change me. Oh no! So I think that's one of the things is I've just been seeing a lot of fright from dungeon masters, right? And we just need to be patient with them. They're not poor dungeon masters. They're not bad dungeon masters. They're just declaring, by saying, hey, we're not bringing Strixhaven into this. They're just asking you for patience to realize they're a starter level commentator. They're a starter level dungeon master. And someday, even though they haven't had 7 years on 5th edition, someday, maybe 15, 20, 30 years playing the game, they'll get to War Turtle level, right? And they'll put Strixhaven in their game. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.